It's 6 o'clock on Monday, October 30th, 2023. I'm calling to order the Rutland Select Board and Board of Public Works meetings. We're meeting in the lower level of the Rutland Public Library. We are on Zoom, as well as being live broadcast for local access cable, as well as recorded for re-airing on local access television, as well as YouTube and other social media outlets. We are a 4-member board tonight. 1 member is missing. I do not believe he will be joining on Zoom. So we are a 4-member in-person board tonight. We do have an executive session on our agenda, and we will return to open session from executive session for disclosure and adjourn from that open session. So just so the public is aware, after executive session, we will be back to open session. Moving into the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have treasury warrant 24-9 and payroll 24-PW9 for approval.
We're on there.
Yep.
Yeah. Make a motion to approve treasury warrant 29-9 and payroll 24-PW9.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Questions, comments, concerns? Austin, is there anything out of the ordinary or to be expected that we're not, that we should be aware of?
Not for this one. For the next, once we receive the invoice for the water treatment plant repair, that will be a substantial cost that will be included likely on the next warrant.
And remind me where that's coming from, sorry.
From the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund.
Thank you. Did you have any questions or comments?
Good, Leo, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll take roll call, Jen.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye, excluding safe place.
Second, aye.
And Whitman, aye. Sorry, Harry, I started the opposite way. We have a batch of minutes to approve. So I think everyone was present for all of them. Actually, Paul was absent for the executive session, but he's not here anyway. And if no one has any comments, questions, or concerns about the executive session, we could vote to approve those as well, but not to be released yet as it's an ongoing consideration. So does
Break them up individually or what?
Do you want to do the public ones as a slate and then the executive session as the other?
So executive session was the 16th.
We have an open meeting on this.
Make a motion to approve meeting minutes, October 13th, 2023, October 16th, 2023, October 23rd, 2023.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second,
Motion and a second. Questions, comments, concerns on the public meeting minutes? For the public, this was the emergency meeting that the board held. It was an open, regular scheduled meeting, and then it was a bylaw review meeting. Roll call, Harry.
second, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you, Tamika, for doing these. I know some of them were from recording.
Yes, I have to say not to be released, right?
Correct.
Okay. Make a motion to accept October 16th, 2023 executive session minutes, not to be released publicly
At this time.
at this time.
We have a
Second,
motion and a second. Questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, roll call, Harry.
second, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. Thank you. We are moving right into our 6 o'clock public hearing. It is slightly after 6 o'clock. It is 6:05. I will open the public hearing. This is a National Grid poll hearing for Rutland Heights Way. I think we have documentation, and I think National Grid is most likely on Zoom. So if I understand correctly, this is poles to be placed along Rutland Heights Way to service Harmony Place. The matter has been before the HPDD review board, and they're in agreement that the poles are acceptable. And it was cost prohibitive for the developer to have them as underground poles, so they will be above ground. It was determined the town does not have jurisdiction to prohibit installation of above ground utilities along Rutland Heights Way. And that they can only be required within subdivisions. And DPW Director Klosky has inspected the stakes and he has no concerns with the proposed placement. Austin, any other feedback from anyone? I know Mike and RDIC is here for our conversation later as well.
I don't believe we received anything.
No, notification went out to abutters, we didn't hear anything. As I mentioned, it went before the HPDD review board, it was also discussed by the RDIC. And this was the final step in the process for the developer, was to get approval from the select board for installation.
And Rutland Heights Way is the part from Maple Ave up through,
Correct.
and it looks like National Grid, if you can confirm, would wires be crossing Maple Ave to service it and then go up Rutland Heights Way? No, okay.
Correct, yes, wires would go actually, no, they would not, because they are on the same side as Rutland Heights Way, so they'd go across Rutland Heights Way to service up Rutland Heights Way, so the only thing crossing Maple Ave would be a span guy to support, pole 27.
Okay.
And that is not live. That is just a support for pole 27, so that way it does not lean into Rutland Heights Way.
Okay, thank you. I saw something crossing Maple Ave, so thank you for that clarification. And it looks like there are a total of 7 poles to go up. Is that after pole 27?
7 poles up Rutland. Yep, 7 poles up Rutland Heights Way, and then there would be 2 stub poles, which would be used to support the main 6 poles that are going up Rutland Heights Way.
And am I correct that it would cross Rutland Heights Way from pole 27 across to pole 1 down near the Maple Ave side?
Yes, that is where the main power would cross, is from pole 27 to pole 21. And then there would be a crossing of another support guy at pole, I believe that is pole 5.
Yep, that's
Yes,
correct.
at pole 5, there would be a support crossing going back across Rutland Heights Way to another stub pole that would be supporting pole 5.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments, concerns from the public? Name and address, please.
Tom Rochelle at 25 Maple. Are the poles gonna be on the south side of Rutland Heights Way or the north side of Rutland Heights Way?
They are going to be on the south side, excepting for pole 5-1, which will be a stub pole, a support pole for pole 5.
And pole 27 is on the north side also, correct?
That is on the north side, but that is existing.
Right. Do you wanna,
27.
see,
No,
20,
is that what he said, pole 27? Yeah, that's on Maple Avenue,
yeah,
okay.
do you wanna
So,
see,
no, but so my other question is, so these poles are gonna go from Maple Avenue up to their property, and then everything else is gonna be underground? So it's only gonna look terrible on Rutland Heights Way? Okay,
Because
That is my understanding, that it is going to be overhead from Maple Ave to where the old hospital was, and then it will go underground from there into the development.
and the feedback we got was because the town doesn't have any bylaws to enforce, the public way underground utilities.
so like, one more question. So why, the structures that were put under the road when they rebuilt the road for utilities, why are those not acceptable for use?
I don't,
I am not aware of any infrastructures for us, but because this was not my design, so I've tried to look and find what infrastructure was in there, but I was not able to find any infrastructure for National Grid under the road.
So, wasn't there?
There's no, there's no National Grid
No electric,
infrastructure on the road.
water and sewer only. Just water and sewer? Okay. The electric, you're thinking of Tommy, is the lighting poles.
lights.
Lights are the only thing they've got.
I think there was stuff put under the road, but that's okay. Okay,
From the public, any other questions, comments, concerns? Does the board have any questions, comments, concerns?
I don't know.
I think I just would like to say that I think this is another area that we should as a town be looking at for bylaw opportunities, because it could be something that could have been enforced had we had that in place. And to kind of spin off what Mr. Roshala was saying, that it's along the public way, that we're gonna have the overheads and need to worry about maintenance and everything, and then it'll go underground.
Would that be select board to review, or would that be a zoning?
I believe that would have to be specific to the HPDD bylaw, because they have their own separate zoning bylaw just for that site.
But I think even in general, for all of town,
In general, yeah, I believe it would be a zoning bylaw.
I think, but we can look into it for sure. Name and address, please.
Tim Norwald, 149 Palmagussit. I did have one question I didn't think about. National Grid poles are going up. Are they designed to support cable and telephone? That question hadn't been asked.
Yes, they will be joint owned poles, so they should be designed to support cable and television, cable and phone.
Any other questions, comments, concerns from the board or the public? Hearing none, I would take a motion to close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing on the National Grid pole, Rutland Heights Way.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to close the hearing. Roll call, Harry.
Second, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin aye?
Whitman, aye. We have the hearing closed, so I would take a motion on the polls themselves.
Just to approve it.
Yeah,
Make a motion to approve National Grid poles at the Rutland Heights Way
as presented.
as presented.
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Any additional comments, questions from the board? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Harry?
second, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin aye?
Whitman, aye. Thank you, National Grid. Thank you, Mike and HPD. Thank you for the comments and questions.
Of course.
They're good conversation.
Of course, glad to answer.
Moving into member comments and announcements. Happy Halloween all, happy end of October. Tomorrow there is the trunk or treat on the Common, sponsored by the Public Safety. The hours are 4 to 7?
Yep.
And trick or treat hours are 5 to 8. So stop by the Common and support the local businesses as well as departments in town, and then continue on your trick or treating way. I think we all saw the news about the moose this morning at Naquag. What an exciting experience for those kids and the teachers and staff and parents and everyone. I think the news is having a heyday with it as well, so that's a pretty cool uplifting story for the town. And that's all I really have for tonight. I know we're going into a upcoming busy season. I just wanna keep on everyone's radar the November 11th Veterans Day Memorial Service that we'll hold on the town common, put on by the American Legion and the Veterans Agent. I think that's 11 a.m.
1 p.m.
1 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Roshala. And
With
so-
refreshments afterwards.
Very nice. And so
What are they?
we'll keep it short and sweet
I'd
tonight.
like to make a comment.
Yes, oh yes, please,
You
thank
wanna
you.
do that?
No, go for it, you may.
I would just like to make a comment that I hope everybody exercises their free will and gets out and votes. Doesn't matter what your bent is, I think just everybody with what's going on in the world needs to exercise their vote. Thank you.
And that election is next Tuesday, November 7th. Polls are open, I think 7 AM to 8 PM. And I think precincts 1 and 3 vote at Naquag, and 2 is here at the library.
Yes.
And if you're not sure, you can stop in or call the town clerk's office or stop in one of the polling places and they'll bounce you to where you need to go.
Yeah, there's also a link on the website, on the homepage. It directs you to the state's website and you can actually type in your address and it'll tell you where to go.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And I think there was an email blast also about tomorrow being the last day to request a vote by mail
Yes.
ballot, I think.
So you can still do that, huh?
Thank you, Harry, for that. That's a great reminder. Moving into public comment, we have a full audience. I think a lot of this is joint meeting and presentation stuff in a little bit, but is there anyone here for public comment? Hearing none. Move into the town administrator update. Austin, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief, recognizing we have some special guests. This is a little bit Halloween themed. My apologies to the town seal. Just wanted to spruce it up a little bit.
I love it.
Thank you. I take my creative credit from Tamika. She does all the stuff on social media for us.
actually did that?
I did that, believe it or not. You can tell it's awful, but
Tamika, is that your hat?
It is. Only on certain days though.
I just have a couple of slides, and certainly if there's any questions, I can either follow up or happy to answer any questions now. Just wanted to thank our finance team. Free cash and retained earnings were certified last week. Just about $750,000 for the general fund, and retained earnings for the water and sewer fund were $648,000. They were submitted earlier. There's a little bit of a delay. Usually they're pretty quick in getting back to you, but there was a little bit of a delay there. But just want to thank town accountant Donna Kuchar and treasurer collector Becky Tuttle for their work on that. We also received our OPEB actuarial valuation from Odyssey Advisors. Our total OPEB liability did increase approximately $600,000 to just under $7 million. Our funding ratio is just under 9%. The increase is due to the number of retirees and spouses, as well as kind of projecting out future healthcare costs. Unfortunately, our valuation went up. We're just under 9%. We're obviously nowhere near fully funded, but I think and it was actually noted in our valuation that it's good that we're making at least some sort of an effort to fund that with our trust funds. So I think we're 5% of free cash we typically fund each year towards this. Any questions on budget and finance on that one? The full report will be posted on the town website as well for OPEB.
So just so I understand, we are 8.55% of 6.9 million.
Correct.
That's how much we have in, okay.
And I think that's not uncommon for cities and towns to not be anywhere near funding that. It's just another one of the unfunded struggles that everybody's having.
Yeah, talking with some of my colleagues, there's still some towns out there that haven't even touched OPEB at all. So I think it's good that we're doing something. I don't think we're ahead of the game on this certainly, but we're certainly doing a lot better, especially for some of the other communities in the region. And this is always a challenge too, because $600,000, it's not like we necessarily just hired a bunch of people. It's sometimes it's also just related to the assumptions that the actuaries put in place. Unfortunately, also the healthcare industry, the costs associated with it are skyrocketing like crazy, and that also that was one of the major actually increases for this valuation for this. So we have to complete this every 2 years. So the next one will be in 2024 or 2025. Sorry.
If I may, I just wanna reiterate your comments and thanks to the finance team, Becky and Donna, for working to get the free cash in and certified, cause I know that there's year end is a lot of cleanup and juggling, and then with the override passing, the start of the new year was a lot of work also. So thanks to the whole team, and Austin, to you and Tamika as well, cause I know it's a big team effort.
Thank you. Just a couple of personnel updates. I mentioned in the last meeting, we did hire a new town planner. He started last week, John Charbonneau. I've been saying it wrong. He's great. I think he's met obviously most of the town staff associated, especially with his office, but also I think he's had an opportunity to talk with some of our boards and commissions as well. He attended his first planning board meeting on the second day of work. I think that went well.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah.
Definitely.
He's very excited to be here. There's a lot of work on that front for him, but I think he's gonna do a great job for the Planning and Community Development Office. I'm also proud to announce we promoted Detective Dan Collins to the lieutenant's position. He was among approximately 20 applicants. He not only scored the highest, but he interviewed very well. And I think he's a wealth of knowledge, especially on policies and procedures for the police department. And I think he'll make a great first lieutenant for the police department. We also were fortunate to receive applications.
Excuse me,
Sure,
when does he start?
next week.
Next week? Okay.
Received applications for the treasurer collector's position. I think we've got some great applicants. HR coordinator will be leading that process. We'll have an internal committee for the screening committee, and hoping to follow the same process that was presented to the board and have someone hired and on board ready to start approximately sometime in February.
Sorry, quick question.
Sure.
How did you end up advertising the description, the title of it's just treasurer collector?
Treasurer collector.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can certainly explain the rationale for that if you'd like.
No, I'm just curious, we can.
Yeah, no, so I'll now that you asked. Yeah, so just we did an analysis, I think, of communities, especially in the area, for that position. Candidly, I think the treasurer collector still has a lot of responsibilities, and finance director, I'm not sure we're quite there yet to have a finance director. Maybe when we double in size at some point, or even if we, have 5 or something more thousand people. But I just think where we are from an organizational perspective, I'm not quite sure that it suits having a finance director as of yet. But of course, we'll see where that goes when our budget is 60 million or something at some point. But looking forward to meeting those candidates and getting that process moving along. And we're still looking for some folks for the Public Works Department with the promotion of Mr. Christensen to the foreman. We're looking to backfill his mechanics position, and we still have one open position for the DPW laborer and truck driver position. And CDL and some various other licenses are required, but the CDL is critical, especially for the mechanics position. Just to close it out, Leah took the thunder for the trunk or treat. That is tomorrow from 4 to 7, and just a reminder, trick or treating is from 5 to 8. Just with that as well, as I think it's getting darker earlier, I just wanna, especially tomorrow where there's gonna be a lot of people on the street, just be mindful and be safe tomorrow. The Miles Road Water Main Project service connections were completed last week. They'll be closing out, final paving of the trench, well, not final, but paving of the trench for the winter, and then they'll come back in the spring for final coat of paving. And then also just repairing some of the kind of the cleanup along Miles. But that project, thankfully now is all set. The water treatment plant, as I mentioned earlier, the third filter repair is now complete. And with that repair, they actually started flushing the whole town today. I believe they're proceeding over the next couple of days to get the whole town flushed. And it was crucial to have that third filter up to make sure that, we're not placing an immense amount of strain on the 2 filters that were active. And the Hubbardston radio tower is now live. From what we're hearing from our counterparts in Hubbardston, the reception is great. They're actually able to hear the radios in places they've never been able to before. And with the impending upgrade to the radios, the tower is only operating at approximately 25% power. So we can only imagine what the signal will look like when it's at 100%. So we'll be completing that radio upgrade project over the winter.
Thank you to you and Director Moriarty, and I know it's been an ongoing through a few town administrator projects and everything also to kind of keep that moving forward and the work going on it. So I know Director Moriarty did a lot of it, and so thank you to that.
Yeah, and a huge credit to the state 911 department for their, and we're grateful for their continued support, not only for kind of development and construction upgrades, but also our continued operational support that they provide. So happy to answer any questions the public may have.
Thank you, Austin. Moving into new and special business, I think we have some guests here for the fire brigade. We have, I don't wanna steal your thunder, fire brigade, so have at it. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Hello, my name is Randy Jordan. I'm captain of the Rutland Fire Brigade. And tonight we are going to have the Rutland Volunteer Fire Brigade is going to donate an acceptance, a check that we have with us tonight for $7,000 to pay for 8 firefighters FCX escape system for a multi-level fire safety equipment that has saved firefighter lives. More or less, it's a rope. It's a fancy rope that they can jump out the window if there's a situation. For those that don't understand what this multi-level fire safety equipment is. This is part of the Rutland organization goals of support needed for the Rutland Fire Department, and we have done many of these in the past over the years. The Rutland Fire Brigade was started in 1894. I've been an active member of the Fire Brigade since I was married 8 years ago, and been a great part of helping the Fire Brigade do things that have come to that we have donated over the past. We recently donated a fire rescue boat. We've done cold water rescue Gumby suits. We've bought support generators, turnout gear, department radios, thermal imagers, IO drill for the ambulances, fire support funding for different events that they have major fires that we come and support with. Part of our treasury, our budget for the fire department is fire support, that if they have a large fire and they need meals or things like that. In past years, Dick Barakian was always an active member of the brigade that would go to a larger fire and see that they got fed coffee or donuts or pizza on larger meals. And thankfully, we haven't had too many of those recently on any fire training. Things like that we buy for neighboring towns that come in, as well as our own town, to do all that. We've helped with Jaws of Life and starting fundraisers over that in the original Jaws of Life that have come, but the Fire Brigade has helped with buying accessories to go with that. The list goes on and on for over the years that we have done this. And the Fire Brigade also helps with the responsible of the charter signed supporter of the local Boy Scout troop since the beginning of Boy Scouts here in the town of Rutland, that we're still a very active part about it, and the Boy Scouts have helped with different projects at the fire station and the cemetery in that general area, doing that we had heard about before. Other products that has been on the recent forefront of the Rutland Fire Brigade is we have a long-term lease on the old fire station on the hill up here, and we've done a major renovation of the old fire station through helping coordinate donations coming into the Fire Brigade, some through Steve Brewer and other committees like that, but also personal donations that have come in by many and all. And we have majority of the labor has been donated for all of this over the years through our contractors that we have done. And the number for that alone would blow your mind of actually how much we have actually put in up there. This town building has a large history of the town Rutland Fire Department, and hopefully will be turned into a museum-like artifacts up there and house some of the older fire trucks that we currently use. To close, I just want to thank the town and the Rutland Fire Department for allowing us to be part of this growing community, and we're thankful to be able to support their endeavors going forward. So, at this time, Mr. Norwell would like to present.
Oh, no, go ahead, you guys go.
Bring it up to him, give it to him. I like to see him cash it myself.
Thank you very much.
Give it to the chair. You guys wanna do a picture?
Yeah, we gotta get some pictures, propaganda. I got,
Get up there and
no,
take pictures for Facebook. Channel 5 is coming in a minute. They said they were coming in a minute.
They gotta get
Thank
finished
you.
with the
Come on, Tommy.
You guys should be up there, not me.
No, all of us, come on.
Yeah, you guys did the money, you guys should be up there.
Seth, it's coming for you.
Get in here. Come on, get in here.
Just up here for the.
Get right in the middle.
Long time. Long time coming.
You're not getting out of this one.
Slide behind.
I think Darren and Karen, so just look at the clock.
We like Austin here too.
Smush in, please, come on.
Smush, I'm smushed.
Harry, make your buddy smile.
I don't smush well.
Hard.
She's always got cute comments.
Yeah, trust me, I'm married to her, I know that.
So originally, we were hoping to do this at the special town meeting was our original intention. But it was brought to our attention, this is the more proper place to do it, so that's why we brought it forth to you folks tonight here in doing that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Please don't.
Thank you.
Thank
don't
And
go
if
to
there are
closed
questions or
session.
comments, I'm happy to field what we can. We have much more knowledge in this room than myself.
Just a motion to accept.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. Coming from a town in Pennsylvania that only had volunteer fire, moving to Massachusetts and professional fire departments is a new thing to me, and it's great to see the volunteer aspect still so strong and alive and well, and I know how much work the brigade does in collaboration with the department as well as the rest of town. And I can speak from my son's experience in Boy Scouts and the knowledge and the support that he had received through the brigade as well as other scouts. So I think it's a great whole town-wide organization. And so thank you for the support you've shown already and the continued support.
I'm Darren Ross, Fire Roof Respondent. So a couple other things, Randy did a great job, but it's also one of the oldest buildings in town, if not the oldest public building in town. Public building, not owned by the town. It back in the day, it was like the first meeting hall, so they would go there. Everybody in town would go there. And the other thing that they did is Tommy and I saw it in the notes that there was a time that the town didn't have enough money to put sidewalks in the center of town. And the brigade, through the town, they raised like $27 and did all the sidewalks in the center of town. But it was interesting. Back in the day, they did the sidewalks because the town didn't have any money in a tax base and so just so everybody knows, I think it's a great organization, it works well, and as time goes on here, the building will be finished. We'd love to see all you guys come up and visit it if you haven't already. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would take a motion to accept the donation from the donation from the fire brigade.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to accept $7,000 from the Rutland Fire Brigade to be donated to the Rutland, just town of Rutland or Rutland Fire Department? Rutland Fire Department?
For the benefit of the fire department.
Sure.
Donate to the town of Rutland for the benefit of the fire department.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional questions, comments, concerns from the board? Hearing none, roll call Harry.
Second, aye.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin, aye.
Waitman, aye, with much appreciation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving into the joint discussion with the RDIC, which is the Rutland Development and Industrial Commission. Mr. Sullivan, you're here. Do you have a quorum? Do you need to open or anything, or?
Yes. Make a motion to reopen.
A motion to
You don't need a
reopen.
motion. You can just say you're declaring it open.
Our meeting is open.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming in. I think there is some wants from the board just to touch base with RDIC and see how things are progressing at Harmony Place. I know there's been some back and forth, and I know, Mike, that you've been doing a lot of work to keep everything moving forward on that. And then as well as kind of any other things that you guys have been working on or how we can help support you in what you need.
Do you have any specific questions of us?
Does the board have any specific questions?
If I may, I apologize for interrupting. I don't think you guys have a quorum anymore. You only have three members.
Jimmy's here.
Jimmy's here.
But it's only three of you. You need four to have a quorum, right? Don't we have a 7-member board?
No, we have a 5-member board.
Five.
We with the vacancy, right? 6-member? Okay, never mind, sorry. Okay, never mind, I apologize. That's all right.
Well, how about I be the only one that talks, you whisper in my ear.
We need cash.
Thanks for everybody coming in, because I guess I've been getting a lot of feedback from the town, so I guess the question I have is, what plan does the RDIC have for developing all the properties in town that it has control over? If that's a too general question, I can try to rephrase it.
I'll ask you to tell us what we have control over. Because that's been a discussion that's gone on since I've been on the board.
My understanding, okay, so I don't know if there's a law out there or not, or a mass general law or a bylaw, but any property that the town owns that is qualified for commercial property, you have authorization to develop or go out and see that that gets developed?
To market it, I believe, but
Yeah.
there have been discussions with other boards that have said our responsibility is the HPDD property and that alone.
Okay,
So if I may.
we'll have to clear that
I
up
had the same
somehow.
look on my face when I heard
We'll
it.
have to clear that up, because what I said on the RDIC, the RDIC was responsible for the whole town, not just, so a subdivision of HPDD is for the hospital, I understand that. But RDIC has control up here, and it should be able to look at all the properties out there. So if there's some discussion, the board will have to take it on advisement here to figure this out.
By way of example, we contracted the cell tower down on Route 68 I don't know how long ago, 20-something years ago. That's generated over $300,000 in revenue to the town. So that certainly is not a site on the HPDD property,
Right.
but it came to the RDIC, the inquiry came to the RDIC. We developed it, it brought it to the Board of Selectmen at that time, and they approved it. That's the only project we've ever worked on off the site.
So, no, does anybody have any questions before I continue?
You finish, I have one, but go ahead.
Okay. So nobody has ever come to you, a board, committee, or an officer of the town and said to you, you have direction over these properties to develop them for the benefit of the town to enhance the revenue to take some of the pressure off of our citizens. You have no control over that.
I've been on that board for, I think, 26 or 7 years, and I'm getting old, Harry, so I don't remember everything, but to the best of my recollection, absolutely not.
Okay.
With the
I
chair.
just,
As recently as the last select board, well, I'm saying the last one, one of the last select boards specifically said, you stick to the hospital, that's keeping you busy enough, we'll take care of everything else. And that's where the EIDC, that's, in my opinion, that's why that was formulated, because there was what I consider a road select board that decided to do something on their own.
all right, I appreciate that comment, because my understanding was totally different, serving on the committee and then seeing how things were evolving out there. So I was just, I guess I'm flabbergasted to find out that you can't move forward on any of these properties to help develop, because you don't know where the control is.
I'll give you an example. I got contacted by a resident asking about the parcel of land up behind the cell tower on Route 68.
Yeah,
Interested or asking questions about, is it for sale, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, you know, last I knew, that's not for us to handle, so I turned it over to the town administrator and he's contacted the gentleman and, so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Tom, and then I'll ask you, Austin.
Well, through the chair, just on the heights, what is it that your committee does right now to market the leftover property in regards to the heights?
Currently?
Right.
Nothing.
So it's just sitting there.
Our committee made a conscious decision year and a half, 2 years ago, to put the rest of the property on hold until such time as this parcel got significantly developed, so that the interest in that property would be significantly different with, let's just say it was built out, there's 142 senior housing units up there. Prospective buyers would certainly have a different attitude and interest towards that property than they do it sitting there empty. So we took a vote and unanimously agreed to just put everything on hold on the other properties.
From the RFP side.
If I may add, I think Austin, with kind of the connect, with your blessing, right, Mike, reached out and we as a select board agreed to work with Clark University to kind of look at the remaining parcels and look at potential opportunities for the redevelopment of the remaining parcels there as well as throughout town. I do 100% agree that I think since I've been on the board, it's been a murky question as to what land RDIC is responsible for kind of marketing and what land is falling elsewhere. And there was a board a few iterations ago that created the Economic Development Commission, and with the, I think that at that time, the intent of having RDIC focus on the Heights property and the other properties in town fall to EIDC. EDC, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's our board's opinion that once the RDIC developed the HPDD property to its maximum, we were gonna go away.
Yeah.
That's what the perception was when the EIDC was, is that the correct term, EIDC?
EDC.
EDC, when the
Economic
EDC was
Development
created,
Council.
that's the impression we got.
And we, as I sat on that board, it was sold to us that it was a joint conversation with the chair at the time and the town administrator at the time, as well as the town planner and the chair of RDIC, that was an agreement, an agreed upon path forward. So if it was not sold that way, I'm sorry, and I think that it's definitely an area for which we heard in all of the financial updates, you know, in the spring, talking about the override and stuff, a big want of town for economic development and how we can work cohesively as a team to push economic development forward and not point fingers at who's doing what or who's not doing what or whatever. I know a few years ago also, RDIC was involved when the solar was hoping to go in on the brownfield and packaging that with some property on Wheeler Road also to make it a little bit more attractive and robust for town. And unfortunately, grids constraints got flushed that project, but I know that there were opportunities and it seems unfortunately that it's really been at the whim of the chair of the board almost, I wanna say, and not even the board as an entirety, how RDIC has been functioning. And so I think if we can kind of have some more leadership from town planner and the planning office, as well as town administrator's office, and commitment from the board here to support economic development as an entirety forward and not.
Yeah, I mean, my question's not to pick on the RDIC or anything, it's like,
Pick away, Harry.
not at all. I know what that job is like, I know what RDIC. My concern is, we've got lots of property out there, we've got people asking us, and we are not helping this town in the form of a tax base if it's confusing what our job is. That is something that this board does need to clear up, one way or another, with the help of the town administrator. Because we gotta focus on whose job it is to get this done and then start moving forward on it.
Let me just summarize as the chairman of our committee the way I deal with it. If an inquiry comes on the HPDD site, we deal with it. If an inquiry comes off the HPD, to me, it comes to our board, typically through me as the chairman, I then turn it over to the town administrator. But just back to your point about how the two committees were formed and discussed, there was never any discussion with the IDIC. And I'm not complaining, I'm just making a statement of fact. We were never involved in that discussion, because we quite frankly sat there going, what are they doing? I still ask myself that.
Does, since you have a lot of your people on the board here, do you and the board feel like you are up to the task of dealing with the properties and develop it going forward, if your task is clear in terms of what you can do?
I'd like to see the task before I answered that, but sure.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I think the proof is in the pudding as to what's happened there, as to our abilities.
I don't see the point though, through the chair, in leaving land, prime land off the market. I don't understand how that helps the town,
Well,
the
Do you think-
remaining lots.
it's our opinion that the land down off of Maple Avenue is prime land for commercial. It's our opinion that commercial interest in that property will be far more significant than it is right now when they look up the street and they see 250 people living up there. Whether it be you pick the business, a barber shop, a hairdresser, a 7-Eleven, a donut shop, whatever it is. We have gotten no real interest to date. Now, we have not actively marketed it, but that's the position of our board.
No, I agree with you, there's gonna be a lot more desire, absolutely, but the process has started, so I don't understand leaving it.
Well, have you been up on the site recently?
I've driven
Yesterday.
by it, yeah.
I mean, up onto the site?
No,
Well, if you go up onto the site, if you were a commercial developer, you'd go, wow, what a big dirt pile there is here. I mean, you can't envision,
There's no foundation.
that,
you and I can't, they can, they do it for a living though. Commercial builders.
well, I can talk specifically about where Harmony Place is right now. They have 2 building permits in hand, and they expect to start construction within the next 3 weeks. They applied on Friday for 2 more building permits that I'm guessing are gonna follow. Those are gonna be model homes and so on. So you're gonna see buildings pretty soon, so that's pretty exciting to me. I don't know,
Go ahead.
Here. No.
Go ahead.
The RDIC was in existence before the Rutland Heights property came into availability to the town.
Yes.
correct.
And there was a predecessor committee to the RDIC also, which was a Development and Industrial Commission also.
Yes.
And these other, so it's got to be somewhere in the town records, either a town meeting vote or a vote of the select board that created the committees that you're talking about with the charges that were given to them.
I think.
So wouldn't that be written down somewhere?
I believe it is.
So I would, it seems to me that'd be a good starting point and would answer a lot of your questions.
Well, if you're right about that, then
I am
why-
right about, I know I'm right about that. 'cause
But I'm
that
just
was
saying,
there.
if you are, then why weren't these questions answered under the other boards when before we did the ADC?
Good question,
Same here,
good question.
if we had this research available. I mean, I do agree with
Well, it's the
Tom that
town record, it's the town record you gotta look at.
yeah, or the bylaw for the
Well, that's the town
RDIC.
record.
Right. I do agree with Tom in a respect that if we start sending out a message that in a year or 2 years, this might be available, somebody might just wanna lock it up, knowing they're going to do something with it in a year or two, cause it's, by the time it goes to your committee, planning board, everything else out there, it's gonna be a year to a year and a half before they start developing this thing down there. And from what I understand, it's gonna be 2-3 years before the houses start up. So I can see those two coming together. So I don't know what your time frame is in terms of why you're waiting for that to be developed, but I think the RDIC could start to look at marketing it in some way to let people know that this is happening. I guess that's just, again, trying to use that land and get the tax base there. Because we've been sitting in all this with no taxes coming in, not just this, but other property. And for one, for a member of the board, I would like to see us clear this up, so there is a specific task, if it's in the bylaws, to move forward on this thing. Start showing the town that we're not just gonna depend on their tax base to get things done, that we can actually move forward on commercial.
Austin, I saw you had.
Just 1 second. So it looks like in Article 7 of the March 1st, 1965 town meeting voted to accept Chapter 40, Section 8A, establishment of Development and Industrial Commission, 5 members. There's been subsequent votes to expand that. I know that there's been other votes, I think, to codify that a little bit more and maybe to give what the current RDIC looks like. Chapter 40, Section 8A, such commissions shall conduct researches into industrial conditions, investigate and assist in the establishment of educational or commercial projects, including projects involving private enterprise for the purpose of expanding or strengthening the local economy. It talks about what the employment process looks like, but accepting that statute, and it doesn't look like that was rescinded at all, that acceptance. That, I guess, is what the general charge and when that happened in the 60s.
I agree.
But I think it's good practice. Can I just make a comment about any board and commission? When a commission is adopted, typically there's a formal charge that's adopted, and that's either kept in the town administrator's office, town clerk's office, that's for sure. But it also talks about membership, what the appointment process looks like. If you go onto the RDIC's page right now, I don't think it has any information about what your charge is, Mike, or Harry as well. So I think if there is one, we should find it, put it on there. If there isn't one, I think it would be prudent to adopt one.
But to a lot of the questions that have been going on, I think it would be, whose responsibility is it gonna be to specify the difference in what each one does? 'Cause it seems like there's a lot of overlap.
Well,
Do we need to, if it was the original intent of the RDIC
I
to
think
accommodate all of
I
that?
think we do need to have clarification because I think the EDC charge is overlapping, the current EDC charge is overlapping what the RDIC adoption of this allows or authorizes. So I think that this board with hopefully John can help also in Austin, we can work together with EDC and RDIC and do it comprehensively and collaboratively to make sure that we're not doubling efforts on some of these tasks because I sometimes feel like we chase our own tails about stuff. And if we can formalize and edit, amend, formalize the charges for at least those two. And that gives RDIC a clear plan forward, whether it's this iteration of a board or as we've been talking about with the bylaws and everything, future iterations also.
One of the main differences that, just looking at the EDC charge, is the agricultural component. It seems like maybe a lot of that is regarding the agricultural tourism, improving that, finding opportunities for a lot of the local farms.
And I think if I may, I don't wanna speak on behalf of the EDC, but I think at least initially, EDC was a little bit kind of frustrated with the lack of direction also. So I think there is plenty of opportunity for improvement and collaboration and clarification. with that. And we've heard on the EDC side, the hope and want for staff support. And I think that staff support could also support the RDIC side of things as well. So I think it's,
Can I ask, what is the charge of the EDC? And if it's long, don't bother.
It's long.
I think it's long.
Never mind.
There's several,
I'll
it's
read
a
it
page
on the-
worth, yeah.
That's why I think we say that there's so much overlap going on. Because I've read the EDC and it is quite a bit, it's quite involved.
Well, I just heard you say something about support staff for the EDC and, you know, we're allowed $200 a year for the last 20 years or 25 years to run our department. So to think that we're gonna add support staff for the EDC when we're struggling to get more than $200 doesn't seem to make sense to me.
I think that's still under advisement yet.
Oh, I'm not saying you're doing it, all I'm
That could be a
saying
planning
is,
board, that could be, I don't know what staff means. You know, can anybody explain what staff means? No, so it's still,
but I think there's, and this has been some ongoing conversation, right? Sometimes we as a town need to invest some sort of monetary or staff investment in something to reap a much bigger return. And I think there's proof with Harmony Place that once we got committed to actively marketing that and brought in a commercial real estate firm and everything, things took off. But I think that we as a town need to make a commitment that there needs to be some sort of investment at times to reap a much more significant return.
I was gonna hop off that, that's a great segue, what I was gonna talk into. You talked about investment into the property. We have over when you're driving in there on the left side, a lot of the pond over there, things like that, and we'd, you want me to finish that?
no, go right ahead, no.
Okay, I'll go into it.
Austin and I were making eyes.
Oh, and at one point we'd ask for, it was a sum of about $25,000 in that range to clean up trees and get that area cleaned up, so it would be more marketable. That's even a better advantage now with the Heights property going in up there. People are gonna drive in Rutland Heights Way. They're gonna see it. If it's cleaned up, trees are cleaned up, you've got a pond over there. It allows the, again, I apologize if I'm overstepping, but the DPW to be in there and mow and clean things up. It's just an advantage, and that money, again, I think we'd ask the RDIC ARPA money, you know, I don't have the exact funding, but there was funding that could be used to get that tree cleanup. And I really think that would be more from a marketing standpoint for us, that money would be useful to the RDIC. So I guess I'm just putting my sales pitch out there that I think we really need to think about that as we move forward, especially with functions that Harmony's gonna have with people coming up there to look to purchase it with brokers. So
Well, the truth be known, the previous select board committed ARPA money for us to do that.
Previous select board committed a lot of ARPA money to a lot of, but didn't wanna take the votes to allocate it.
Well,
So-
my recollection was there were two items that were tops on the list, and this was one, and I think the fire department driveway was the second one. Those were the two items that as soon as the state grant issues were resolved, if we didn't get that funding, then the ARPA money was gonna be released, and that hasn't happened.
That's the old board.
that's another discussion.
Well, I guess I'm putting my 2 cents in that I'd really like that to be brought to the top of the discussion point, because the time to do it, as my counterpart, Mr. Williams would say, is when there's no birds and there's no animals in those trees, which is right now until spring, to do the work there to get it cleaned up. So it's the reason why I wanted to make it a priority with this board, because waiting till the spring when you've got nesting animals and trees starting to bloom is not a good time to start cutting things down. That's it, thanks.
And every year you don't do it, it costs more money to do it.
Unfortunately, this has been a political football since 1965. Depending on the whim of the select board, was dependent on which way they were given direction. I think we're fortunate that Mr. Sullivan and a lot of the guys on the board, or a lot of the people on the board, have stuck around long enough to see this harmony plays through. But I'll be honest with you, to the new members of the board, you go back, if you wanna fall asleep tonight, cause you can't get to sleep, read about all the trilogy of the years. One board gets elected, and these guys go to the bottom of the list. The next, let's do this, so they've never been given clear direction. I think we have a very able town administrator now that can come up with what happened in 1965, help you guys with your decision, and we can move forward. And there's a ton of properties in town. They've come to the finance committee and they've said that we're gonna be looking at a new school in the next couple of years in the town of Rutland. We should be thinking of that there's a lot of properties in town that the town owns that we could do some, so I think we should look at it from a whole broad base, but I think it starts with you guys giving Austin direction to get you straight away.
That's gonna be one of my questions. How much property is left
About
at Harmony Place?
50 acres,
About 50?
but there's a pond on it, there's wetland issues.
So how much would be developable?
Well, the developable part on the right side of the road is probably 5 or 6 acres again, because there's a tributary that goes through there. And then on the other side, that's so complicated that I can't honestly give you a real good answer, but I'm gonna say there's, currently, I'm gonna say there's 4 or 5 acres, but I think if we could get some agreement from DCR on some issues, we may be able to make it a lot more than that.
I'm sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
But just one last thing in regards to the RDIC, to date, we've contributed, our board, the efforts of our board have contributed about $2.2 million to the town's coffers. It's a little frustrating to think we can't get $25,000 to clear the rest of that site, to basically, and I know there may be some on your board will say, why do we care about that? But to make the rest of the entire property look better, so that when people come in to buy these condominiums, they go, wow, check this out, there's a beautiful pond there, you can fish in there. In fact, Doug Brick still here, was telling me that there's fish in there, like yay big. But anyway, I just think it's short-sighted to not look beyond that.
Has there been any talk about using it for any town purposes?
We have asked in the past, I think it was back when Margaret was here, which is 10 years ago or so. I don't know, it doesn't matter. And we've gotten no concrete responses from it, but get all kinds of, oh yeah, we'd love to do recreation there, oh yeah, but no one's ever come to us with a plan that makes any sense. I will say that I have requested many times a meeting of all department heads and say, look, for instance, the parcel on the right-hand side, I think that best use from a town return is as commercial property. But I also hear there's no soccer fields, there's no baseball fields. Well, those things are all very important to the town too. Are they more important than whatever, $200,000 in tax revenue you're gonna get every year if the kids have a real facility there? Maybe not. But it's just never come together.
Can I just add one thing to what was just asked? There has been 2 plans put together for the property up there. One goes back into the early 90s when it was gonna be purchased by the town, and there was another one when the zoning was changed, I don't know, in the early 2000s or something, from what the original zoning, and then the zoning was changed. So there's been study, there's gotta be information somewhere. It included recreation, it included some town property, it included commercial. Cause I was on the first committee that was formed, I was on that committee, and we had a whole layout of things to do up there. But there's also a lot of other land, I'm just going back to, there's a lot of other pieces of land in Rutland that can be used, and there's good places for recreation to be used that the town already owns.
Yeah, and that's one of the discussions our board has had, that we think that there are parcels in town that are better suited for recreation and not, I'm gonna use this term, stealing this prime piece of
Correct.
commercial property, because once that's gone, it's gone.
Right.
And I mean, what better place than right in the town center?
And I guess from my frustration is the RDIC coming to the board with a plan that says, okay, here's what we'd like to do with this property. This one, this one, this one, this is what we recommend we do with this property. What are we gonna do with the other 7 properties? A plan that says you have the overall control, if you will, of recommending what these things can be used for, commercial, light industrial, you name it. That's what that's what I'd like to see
That's been done, commercial, residential,
on all the properties.
All the zoning
on
is
Rutland
done.
Heights.
No,
Yes.
I'm talking about all the properties, once we figure out what control you have coming to
Oh,
us.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood your point, I thought you meant the rest of the
You
parcel.
just need direction, that's all they're looking for.
Yeah,
Guys gotta give them a little direction, they'll take off.
Well, and I think direction, but also codify that direction, so it's not so much at the whims of the boards. There's always gonna be some swing, pendulum swings with a select board, but I think just having some sort of codified charge and goals, those SMART goals, measurable, attainable goals that are in the best interest of all of town. And like I said, we've heard about the economic development piece and everything, and I think it's been shuffled around a lot, unfortunately.
I think, and speaking to the request about ARPA funds to clear out the pond and whatnot, you said you do have a plan for like short-term, long-term use of the property and benefits of,
We solicited the town,
Sections.
I'm sorry,
no, go ahead,
I interrupted.
no, that's okay.
We solicited comments from the town departments. The only one that responded, well, and we had our own discussion, what do we think should happen to each parcel? Top was gonna be residential after solar went away, and we weren't necessarily happy with solar, but it was a good revenue generator for the town at the time. The left side of the road was gonna be some sort of recreation, passive recreation, most likely because of, and I can get into the wetland issue, but if you think you're frustrated now, you'll really be frustrated by the time I'm done. And then the right-hand side of the road was gonna be commercial of some sort. So, sorry. I don't know whether that answers your question or not, but
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, when it comes to providing funds for things like clearing that out, making it look nicer. For me, it would be a lot easier to be okay with agreeing to provide those funds if there was a plan in place to say, we would like X amount to do this, to make it look nicer, so that we can then market this piece, do this, kind of have a laid out plan versus just providing that funds to have it cleared out and then,
for town use.
right, but to not have anything else done, for the next couple of years. So if we're just handing over money to clear something out, but then not seeing the next step of a plan take place to, like you said, clean it up, to get more interest in the property, to have a plan, just
Well,
if that
for
makes sense
instance,
for me.
where do the kids go ice skating today? Some go to Long Pond, some go down to Putnam Pond, but wouldn't that be an ideal spot right in the town center to have our winter carnival kind of thing? I envision it, if it was done properly. I keep using Dean Park in Shrewsbury as an example, but, picnic tables, places where people could go down and, where do they go in town other than the state park or the pool? But it's kind of a whole different.
And I think to some point, providing passive recreation like that and passive recreation opportunities can provide economic development to the small businesses in town. People might come and get sandwiches from the marketplace or pizza from Tula's or Rutland House or takeout from Center Tree and then want to go and participate there and do whatever or not. So I think sometimes, again, we as town need to be mindful of what that economic dollar is going to do and that it might not always be a huge infusion of cash immediately, but over the long term, is it bringing people in? Is it providing opportunities for other small businesses to come into town because there's people coming into town that would support them? And that as well. Austin, do you know the status of the work with Clark? Sorry, I forget the name of it.
Just for the public to be aware, the board authorized the town to work with Clark University Small Business Development Center. They are working with on identifying a group of students to work on the project, and they've also been in touch with our new town planner. So I would imagine that work will be starting within the next several weeks.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
Jim, I was gonna add to Mike's, I guess what I was trying to do with that money was also, to what Leah said, get it, cause right now it's a disaster over there, you can't get the pond, there's trees everywhere, you can't mow it. So the point was to get it cleaned up so the town could use it, and at the same time, it's sort of a twofold attack, you're using it for town, fishing or picnic tables like Leah said, but also you've got it cleaned up for a potential marketing for recreation, or if somebody wants to come in, God forbid, and put in a nice building on 4 acres for indoor skating or something like that, so to me that, to me that was, that 20 or 25,000 was a twofold attack. It was cleaning it up for town use, and short term, and then long term it was for marketing, not only for that property, but again, like I said, for the commercial property, cause they gotta drive that way unless they're coming through the school, and that back way is really not known to get to the new Harbor Classic Homes, so they're gonna have to drive that way and they'll go buy that property, so.
I think for me, if I can spin off a little bit, I think over the years, I feel like town has appropriated some small amounts of cash over the course of years for tree cutting or for marketing or something.
Not on the IDIC.
Over 40,000. I got the numbers.
And I think,
I'll explain when Leah's done.
and I think I would just like to see that that's going to be able to be maintained so that it's not 25,000 going in to clear it now, that nothing's gonna happen to it for 3 to 5 years, and then we're gonna need another 25 because nothing's been done. And I know that that's a conversation to ensure that DPW has there's buy-in on DPW, on the town and DPW side, and they have the resources and the funds allocated to maintain that as well. I wholly understand and agree that there is value to having that property cleaned up, and also I wanna make sure that it's cleaned up in a maintainable manner so that it's not another 5 years, we need another, at that point, 50,000 or something to clean up something that has already been cleaned up. And that's not a dig at anybody, that's just, I think as town, we haven't been necessarily good about seeing those investments as investments.
Anywhere in town?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, how long has the library been sitting?
Right.
I mean, Carrie, if you give me just a second,
No, you don't have to, we don't have to banter about that. I don't wanna waste the time with it.
No, but $30,000 of that money you're talking about was because we cut trees down. And we got $30,000 for the timber, which the selectman was gonna put back in the general fund, and we stood up at a town meeting and said, hey, folks, we could use that money to do what we wanna do, and the townspeople voted to give it to us, so we never got $45,000.
I'm talking about over the years, but I don't wanna get into that. You and I can have a private discussion about this.
But back to the return on the $25,000 investment, I mean, the build out of this now is, I haven't looked in a while, it's 6.2 years, if I remember right, is what we've agreed to before penalty phases start kicking in. If they sell, let's just say the taxes are gonna be $4,000 or $5,000 on each unit. If they sell 5 more units faster than they would have, because when people drive in and say, wow, look at this, I mean, this is really nice to look at. There's your $25,000. So.
Through the chair. I just, my frustration is it's not about pointing fingers, but this board especially, we've been talking about trying to streamline the government in town to work more efficiently. We're both the town and all we do is butt heads. Not necessarily us, but these boards and committees. And I feel like nothing ever gets done. And I wonder if we have too many obstacles to accomplish the same thing. If the town wants to develop its land or sell its land, what do we need to go through 4 different committees to get it done for?
Well, that's exactly why.
It makes no sense to me.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Well, that's why the RDIC is set up the way it is. The HPD review board bypasses all of the other boards, planning board, Concom to some extent. But I mean, that's why we were able to streamline that process and get it approved so quickly.
But it took 30 years, didn't it? What do you mean so quickly? I don't understand. I guess I'm misunderstanding you. I don't understand.
What did it take 30 years to do?
Wasn't that lot vacant for 30 years?
We didn't own it until 10 years ago.
So 10 years, okay.
I'm winging
12
it,
years.
12
Okay.
maybe.
All right. I didn't know that, so, okay.
It shut down in like 91, but it wasn't
So
vacant.
the town didn't take it over?
Town didn't
Correct.
buy it.
Okay.
No,
Fair
town didn't
enough.
get it or anything until 10 or 12 years ago.
Okay.
So I think that the amount of money, not necessarily this board, that we've gone through with the ARPA funds, and we can't dedicate $25,000 to clean that mess up there, cut the trees, make it more presentable for us, me as a taxpayer, to get the revenue on the top of the hill, is we should really take a look at doing that the right way. I understand if you don't wanna, I know you don't wanna waste the ARPA money, but the ARPA money went through here like a fire hose for almost a year and a half. And I'm not saying it was a good thing, but the 25,000 is nothing that's gonna give us a greater return on investment. You guys, and once Austin gets it squared away, him and Mike will get this going, I just think we should really, really look at that and just move forward, guys. That's, Darren Ross, taxpayer, town of Rutland, wants, we spend enough ARPA money on things that are just sitting around doing nothing.
I don't think,
Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with you there.
if I may through the chair, I don't think spending the $25,000 is our issue. The 25,000, is it going to be effective to be spent now? Do we have the resources to spend it? How long will it take to get done? And number two, when we sold the other property, we got money for those trees. Are we gonna get money for these trees that we're cutting down?
There's nothing, unfortunately, the ones that are there are all little scrub things, there's not gonna get anything.
Well, I
But
saw-
you're gonna be able to present, there are a few big trees there, but it's not, we're not gonna get the 25,000 back. But whatever you get is just, it's like, when you go to sell your car, you don't go over to Randy Jordan's farm and drive around the mud fields. You wash it off. Well, we gotta, to sell that property up there, we gotta wash off the car a little bit.
But if it's gonna
That
take
was
another
hurtful.
2 years to develop any homes, why would we spend, and I'm asking the board, why would we spend the $25,000 now when we know we can spend it at some point? Why spend it now? Why tie it up in land or that, yeah, you can see, but it's not gonna do the town.
I guess where I'm gonna say, Harry,
That's
and
what
I.
I'm asking.
Just a point counterpoint here, and then I'll stop. I think if we don't, while we have the ARPA money available to us, I think it's a one-time fund, a one-time thing that we should spend it on before somebody, some other person comes in here and has a crazy idea, and you guys agree with it. We have an opportunity that we can do, and it's town land. That's all, I'm just saying, it's 25
I don't
grand, we
argue
went
with
through $2.5 million like nothing.
I'm not arguing with you, it's that you sound like about 50 people that have come in here for ARPA money,
I know.
okay?
But that's,
So-
but it's 50 people.
But
that
that's the
don't own-
board's-
I own that up there like you do.
But that's the board decision of what else do the citizens own that require money?
It's not an easy
But no, the
decision.
other issue I have is it, when we do this, the plan you're gonna give to us for these trees cutting down and why, does it comply with the mass rules of why we got the property? I know there's certain limitations around the pond that we can't do anything with. Concom has got an issue.
Trust us to manage that.
That's all I'm saying, okay, but I guess I felt like, well, we want 25 grand, but there was no plan, there was nothing there for us to look at. We just wanna cut down trees.
I don't know what, I don't
And
know
we're
what,
expecting more than that from
what do
these.
you want? Tell me what you want.
I want a plan that shows why you're cutting them down, that you have all signed off on it from everybody, that type of thing. Like when an electric pole goes in or something, but that's just me. That's just me, what I think we should look for from our committees and our boards.
Well, again, I can tell I'm beating a dead horse and I don't wanna be that way, but just in tree cutting and parking fees when somebody know what those crazy races are where you run through the mud and all that? Anyway, we collected $41,000 that was found money that easily could be supporting this. But it's gone and,
Town never supported you on it.
excuse me,
The town never supported you with the money, is what you're saying.
the town put the money in the general fund.
It never came back.
And I think it goes to the point of sometimes, it goes to my point of sometimes we need to do an investment to see a bigger return. And we heard again, I go back to those Sunday sessions that the FinCom and Council on Aging and Library jointly held here leading up to the override discussions and how important economic development was to town and what we as leaders of town were doing to invest in the economic development. And so I don't, I hear the concerns of beautifying that space and then providing it as potential passive recreation for people that are considering moving up there as active 55+ community. And I also hear the frustration of being bounced around from board to board and priorities and everything. So I think we as select board have some work to do, hopefully with Austin and John, to kind of look at charges and goals, and hopefully it can be joint with RDIC and EDC. And we can really mindfully intentionally work towards a codified plan.
Yeah, I mean, I know it sounds corny, but we're all on the same team. We should try and get something done,
Right.
you know?
And we've heard, I know Austin and Becky have been working with going through ARPA, and Donna also, to kind of go through ARPA, and we had a brief presentation as to where the outstanding ARPA allocations are. And hopefully with free cash certified and going into the budget season with the capital requests and everything, the fire brigade's driveway request as well as the RDIC's land clearing requests have not fallen off of our radar. It's there. And we've heard both of the concerns for that. So, and I wholly understand the timing of it's better to do it late fall or very early spring, or if it's a mild winter in the winter, to get it
Yeah,
done
not
before.
early spring.
But before.
I'll end my comment with this. I don't know who else is asking for ARPA money and what they want it for, and frankly, I don't care. But I don't know that any other board or committee or organization is asking for ARPA money that has generated revenue to the town like we have. And I say we, like the RDIC has contributed to the town. And I'm sorry, I know you don't like me using the term revenue, but. So, with that,
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Randy Jordan, 51 Muskapog Road, and I believe I've seen the light now that you're talking about RDIC, but you're also talking to economic development, so that would be the group that I'm part of as well, correct? So,
Funny how you're both in the room tonight.
yeah, and it wasn't scheduled, so,
I usually see them in my backyard.
I think there's a lot to be said of the unknownness of what the RDIC was set forth to do, and there's been a lot of go back and forth there doing that. I think Tom made a fair point a few moments ago in regards to, you know, it seems like we all got good ideas, we're all on the same team, we're trying to go forward. And I think part of the reason that you folks have committees in the town that you appoint people to or elected to help make your lives easier or make decisions for you to go forward to do that, right? And using as an example, if the RDIC came forward and said, hey, we need $25,000, it's your place to determine where the money is spent, I understand that. But at the end of the day, you can ask legitimate questions to the RDIC of why, when, how, where you're gonna go with it. But in all honesty, they have a board of 5 people over there that have put a lot of time and thought in it that, hey, can we spend $25,000 on painting the fence out front to make it look better? Or $25,000 on making the pond area look better, right? I think they've put a lot of time and effort into little things like that. They had done some land clearing before on the opposite side of the road, right? Where you had spent some money and did that, and that made a big improvement to it. I understand that we're concerned about, you know, if we mow it today, how are we gonna maintain it next week? And that's something that the RDIC can work on, or the recreation committee can put the picnic tables up there for the, you know. So what I'm trying to say is, I think you guys do a great job up there. I think you question an awful lot of things of it. And I think, knowing what little bit I know of what you guys do as a board, you're out probably 40 hours a week doing town things that you're trying to manage all of it to the best of your ability. What I'm strongly encouraging you to do is allow the committees to do the work for you and make the big picture decision. Okay, guys, we just don't got the $25,000 to spend today, but maybe if we had a better plan or something like that, and I think they gave you a relatively good plan that they wanna sell it, and maybe not, hey, we're gonna sell a soccer field in 2 weeks there or in 2 years. I don't think they can look at that crystal ball because they've had challenges over the last 10 years to get that crystal ball clear, right? So if they feel it's the best money to be spent, I would concur with them that they've brought money into this town, that they should get a return on their investment somehow to try to get more money for you to get to the finish line. And I would strongly encourage you to listen to Mr. Ross as a wise man in town that doesn't like my dirt on their vehicles if you're gonna sell it, and I take great offense. I got good dirt, okay? So there may be other things in the dirt that look the same color, but in turn, I would give you great thought to understand that. And me as a citizen, and an economic development committee member, I've got a tough time. You spent like a rapid fire hose, Mr. Ross said, on ARPA, and I understand you wanna slow down. But you have not given us a timeline of, hey, we're gonna give you some answers in the next 6 months or 6 days or any of that, right? So you talk about economic development, RDIC not making decisions and it takes 10 years to do that. We really don't want you to spend this ARPA money in 10 years. I'm just gonna sit here and hopefully I didn't say too much to get me in trouble, so. I do want my money for the driveway too, let's be perfectly frank, but I just think RDIC has done a good job and you should consider that. That's not why they're here tonight, they're here to give you an update on their things, but I'm just talking generally. I mean, one of the biggest things that disappoints me as a citizen as a whole, I mean, we've spent an hour on this tonight, right? And is this the right place or time to spend an hour of your evening that you got a lot of stuff to do? You should accept checks more often and not talk about the dog that barked too loud or bit somebody at a selectmen's meeting where you can make bigger decisions and make a new policy or make it clear for what the RDIC is doing. They're smart people, they've been there 20 years better, they know what they're doing. Just give them a direction of where they're going and how you want them to do it. I'll stop, because I'm getting hungry.
Thank you, Randy.
So I know there were some board members that had questions, and I think we all just kind of wanted an update on Harmony Place, especially in the Heights property. So thank you guys for coming in, I appreciate it. And I think the feedback that there is no clear direction is valuable for us, and we'll work on that to.
It's an unfortunate common theme that we run into on a regular basis. Yeah.
And every time we go to search for something, it's because so-and-so said this, and this is what it is, and then there's no documentation and we end up going back to 1965 town meeting vote to find the only piece that actually anybody can find.
I'll just make one comment. We believe the IDIC has clear direction on what we're doing with the property. If you folks disagree with that and you wanna talk about it, happy to do it.
I'm not talking only about the RDIC, I'm not only talking about Rutland Heights, I was talking about the questions about the other pieces of land and whether that's RDIC or EDC or some other imaginary group, I don't know, or us, I mean.
I said before it was the last thing I was gonna say, but you know me, I never shut up. I've invited you all to come to the site, I'll give you a tour. No one's taken me up on that yet, I'm happy to do it. If you were ever up there before, and I know a lot of you were, you'll be shocked at what you see, the amount of work that's been done up there.
It's amazing to see how much dirt has been moved, like,
I'm amazed at all the pipes that have gone in and the way the dirt has been formed as if a house is gonna go there with the backdrop. They've done a lot of work since I was up there the last time. Yeah, and so all their electrical, maybe you can tell me, is underground?
Going to be. It's not in yet,
Oh,
but it will be. But it will be underground,
the electric, okay,
on the site will be
Yeah.
underground.
okay.
And what you see when you drive in the driveway, that little hollow there, those are pickleball courts.
Oh,
Not for you, Harry, you don't live up there.
And the plan, they've also agreed, just as an aside, and then I'll leave, the existing flagpole that stayed there, they're gonna attempt to move that up to the community center, which is right at the top of the hill where the driveway goes in. Knowing the way the state builds thing, I can envision that thing being like a battleship underground, and are they gonna be able to do it? Who knows, but they said they would try, so.
okay.
That would be a nice save for the hospital.
That was built by the federal government, not the state.
That means
You're right.
like Hoover Dam then.
That's federal government.
So that means it's even worse.
Well, it's a steel, I don't know why you'd wanna keep it anyway, it's a steel pole, it has to be painted, so you're probably better off, well, they're better off putting a new pole in.
Mr. Williams.
We thought it would be
I think it's a
No, I understand
nostalgia
what
and
you're saying.
honoring.
fitting savior of the hospital.
So I think, I was gonna say, I think we came out with a list of things that we as a board need to look into for sure, and so thank you for meeting with us and helping
Happy to
clarify
come anytime
the
you invite me, and you're
the
welcome.
muddiness.
Any one of you. You all have my number.
And thanks to your board, cause I know Jimmy, you're here
Yeah.
and Tim, you're here and thank you.
I'd like to ask one thing as I walk out the door. There was plaques up there that we saved off of the buildings. There were plaques up there, you know, brass plaques, and they went somewhere.
Inside the building.
And some of them went somewhere, I have no idea where, and
Are they up in the attic at the town hall?
I think they're too heavy for that, but I didn't know if they might have been in your barn or whatever.
Didn't know that.
Anything else of me?
He took him to the
I don't,
We're good?
Motion to adjourn?
Appreciate that.
thank you for coming in, guys, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Motion to
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. We just adjourned. Thank you, Tamika. Because we wouldn't have,
Hey,
again,
Randy.
Yeah, guy next to Darryl.
thank you.
Is that Mike's jacket? Sorry. Tommy, is that Mike's jacket?
It is. Scream at Mike and let him know his jacket's on.
Thank you. He might realize once he gets out that it's raining and cold. Alright, so moving into the special fall town meeting, we had a good conversation on Thursday evening with FinCom, and I appreciate their willingness to do that jointly and have the conversation. Thank you in advance again to the staff for kind of preparing the answers to the questions. I appreciate everybody's willingness to submit those questions in advance. We had a few documentations or changes that had come up. So I think Tamika had updated the warrant, and we just want to if anybody had any additional comments or questions on the warrant, and if not, vote to sign. Do we need,
Finalize and to
I was gonna
sign.
say, we need to vote to finalize and vote to sign. Can it be one
You can do
motion?
one motion, yeah.
Mia, Could we get that as the finance committee?
As soon as the board finalizes it.
The only reason why is because we did make recommendations without you placing, so
Right.
I would have thought that would have come to us as
Just the
well.
explanations that we talked about at the meeting
Yeah, I
that
don't
were
thi-
amended.
I
It
think,
was just the explanation.
Just the explanations,
Perfect.
no,
That's
the warrant articles.
perfect.
I was gonna say, I
No
don't
problem.
I don't recall
When you
any.
said finalize, I'm like, oh no, what changed? If it was just, so it's
No,
just
just the-
incidental being taken out, don't worry about it.
Correct, I did
Yeah.
take that word out.
Yes.
But if you don't mind sending it to FinCom
Of course,
then-
no, I planned to, I just wanted to make sure that you guys were okay with that wording,
Yeah.
so to not have so many back and forth is
Yeah,
all.
no, and I appreciate that, and I know it was just in the explanation, so I think.
Yeah, and there was only maybe 3 of them, I
Yeah.
think that you guys had asked to
Yep.
update.
Did anybody have any concerns or questions or anything? I thought it looked good, thank you Tamika for
Thank you,
capturing
made
it.
the changes, thanks.
Motion to finalize and sign
Yep.
town warrant,
Yep, this,
all 14 articles as written,
yeah, just as presented.
as
Special-
presented.
November 16th special town meeting warrant.
November 16th. Special town. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the November 16th special town meeting warrant. 14 articles, finalize and sign.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions, comments, concerns, discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Harry.
Second and I.
Ledger, aye.
Galvin aye?
Whitman, aye. Thank you. We have some time for general bylaw review, and I think we had talked about just touching base on some of the follow-up items. And Tamika provided us with a list of the follow-up items. We do have next Monday, November 6th, scheduled a bylaw review meeting, and that we will start on chapter 5, I think, and Tamika has provided us with those bylaws as well to look at going forward.
Yeah,
Peter, you came in with a list. Do you have or you just came in to take notes on our,
Yes,
okay,
I have a list of all the things that I believe we need
okay,
to come to conclusion on quickly.
okay. So under general provisions, what I see is still outstanding is clarification of the definition of employee with regards to serving on boards and commissions. This is again, still that employee versus special employee versus whatever and how that's defined in general provisions and then within bylaws. I think you and I go round and round about this one. And so I don't know that we have an answer to that one yet.
No, maybe not.
The other two, I think, under general provisions were resolved. We have appointed committees, just commented about, if we should add in somewhere, that it's a requirement of the bylaw that the minutes are updated and posted. And so I think that this is just more of a note to go out to existing boards and commissions and committees to
Right,
update
that
their
is not a
stuff.
bylaw action.
Right, so I think that we can just make a note,
resolved.
because I think it, if I remember correctly, it does state in the bylaw, and it's MGL that the minutes are.
MGL specifically states it.
There's still a lot of discussion about the town meeting and the time, the date and time of the annual town meeting, as well as the start date of elected officials. And then, so that's the two kind of around elected officials, and then there's additional language related to CIPC's review of capital requests, and I think the timing and everything of that. So I think for annual town meeting, it's currently the Saturday before the election. It's proposed to be,
The Saturday following the
I
election.
was gonna say the Saturday following the election, and the conversation was around kind of how things have been done currently, previously, what makes the most sense. I don't know if the board has, I know we were kind of, it's been tried in the past and has not passed a town meeting, to move town meeting date. And so what the rationale for that was, and we understand the rationale for wanting to move it to the Saturday after town election is to provide the town clerk's office and staff time to get through town meeting, to get through, not have town meeting and town election within a day of each other. I think my concern about moving it to, or conversation for moving it to after the election is in the case of overrides or something that requires a ballot question also is a lot. Unfortunately, historically, the way town has worked is a lot of that education happens at town meeting, and no matter how much we try to get, this year, I think we were fairly successful in getting the word out, and it was a massive push by FinCom and two departments in town, with support from the town administrator's office to get that out. And so whether it's a override question or capital debt exclusion or any sort of ask for anything that needs to be a ballot question, that was my concern of pushing it after that was my biggest concern of pushing it after the election. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. If we still want to try to hold off and continue to mull it over.
If I may, I was just gonna add, cause it kind of ties into the other question as far as the expiration of elected officials, was the concern that there might be an overlap of, would you then have a new, new board members, so then do you switch it to the beginning of the fiscal year, or, so I didn't know if you wanted to think about it in terms of the timing too.
I think I know we've had discussion also about changing the start date of elected officials from the date of the election. Normally, once election results are certified and the winners are sworn in, that's the start date, and the board switches at that point to the start of a fiscal year. So essentially creating a potential overlap where people who have been voted out of office or not sought re-election are still serving for a month or so,
Close to 2.
a month and a half before they take office. I think I'm still of the mindset that at election is when that turnover happens, and we see, I look at government as a whole and see what happens in those lame duck sessions, and I struggle a lot with that people are voting people in for a reason or voting people out for a reason, or people are ready to move on and not seeking re-election for a reason, and extending that is a struggle for me.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, if it were to change, it would only be the first year that it would really be an issue. It's just the elections after that would be, you run for election and you just don't come in until the beginning of the fiscal year, and then you end at fiscal year, so it would just be that first one. My bigger concern is just what you said, Leah, people were voted out or in for a reason, and in that interim time, could something take place for positive or negative reason?
Because I look at it as the board in, usually, and the way it's historically been is in June, the board seats the new boards and commissions for the year going forward. And not that I don't think in this town that those seatings play a huge role in the select board elections, but that's also a consideration that potentially this past year, for example, we had 3 new board members, and it's, how would that board have looked, or how would potentially boards and commissions looked if it was the old board seating them, and everything. The other consideration is also if for some reason the budget or something failed it would pass at town meeting, but it failed at the ballot, or we would know at the ballot if we changed town meeting, we would know an override didn't pass, so then we know going into town meeting what the budget has to be, but what if people fail the budget at town meeting because they're not happy that it didn't pass at the override? I think in some ways it's a circle, and then it leaves some gray areas.
And I think it's also, I mean, if any new member coming in has any concerns because of they don't have enough information or we're not part of discussions for something that came in, they can always recuse themselves from votes stating any of those reasons if they're not comfortable with.
And I mean, I know when I was running to my first time, I was attending meetings before and watching. Zoom wasn't an option. I know a few years ago, a couple of the nominees ran or were on Zoom almost every meeting for months, just to try to get a sense as to what's going on. Obviously, you don't have a say in at that point, but we're hopeful that town as a whole, that our residents as a whole are involved to some degree. So, I mean, I know that there's conversation around it. I'm happy to hear it. That's where I personally am coming from.
I will say that it certainly is important that town government continue to function properly. But I have a concern that there is a gap there from where town government operates efficiently. And that is the gap where newly elected officials will come in, and maybe that's my concern, 2 or 3 days after the meeting. Now, if the new board came in at the middle of the month, that gives an extra week for somebody to do that, maybe that works. But the new people that come in don't have the expertise, and I don't wanna sound political, but if I don't have the expertise and people sitting on the board do, how do I know? We talk about Austin, we want him to do more, so how do we know they're not political with the new board coming in because we weren't granted enough time to really get a feel for what is the legal issues of the board? That's a concern I have. So I don't know if we can rectify that, but waiting till July 1st. It's just, I think the dynamics of the board, you're right, we had 3 people. But I just think that to expect, if you've been serving for 3 years and you know your stuff, to expect an individual to come in and know what you do and not expect them to be a little bit gun shy on some of your decisions because they didn't have the time to really look into what their job was and study the bylaws and all this stuff now that they've been elected. I don't know, I guess I just think is kind of a disservice to the individual being elected, that we're not giving them time. I personally, I don't know how we rectify that, and my only thought was, yeah, let's go July 1st, because that's when the new year takes over.
And I guess, I mean, if I met, go ahead, Jen.
To be honest, Harry, I am that person. And I can't, I mean, I know a little bit more than I did when I first started, but I still have a long ways to go. And the only way I learn is by being here and talking about these things and doing it. So speaking, I guess, for myself personally, being in that position, I don't know that waiting until July 1st would have made a difference for me than just jumping right in and, like I said, just asking questions, and if I wasn't comfortable with something.
I will say that I think this board has made a tremendous progress in making it easier for future boards. We'll clean up the bylaws, we'll clean up some policy, we'll do a lot of things that makes it easy access to find out what your job is on the board and what the right job is on the board. So I think from that perspective, for me, I think that's a big step and saying, yeah, maybe I don't have to do July first, cause now I have this information that's clean, it's there, I know what it is, and I can understand how to do my job.
Yeah,
I just think 2 or 3 days after the election, I think it's just a little too short. That's my own.
It's fast, yeah.
I mean, I think it's fast, and I also think that it's, to Jen's point, a little bit on the onus of whomever's elected to either know what they're getting themselves into, and then if it's a contested election and they win the election, that then they continue to do that work, or not. And it's up to the voters to have a sense or not as to whom they feel comfortable putting in to do that work. Go ahead, Karen.
Karen Narwhal, 149 Palmagussit Road. So, an executive session, something comes up between the election and July 1st. And the new people can't go into that executive session, and they might not agree with how it was handled. You gotta kind of look at it as a broad standpoint that at that point, they are the new people that are coming on board. And I don't believe you can have, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can have everybody, but they can't take a vote and you guys can't take a vote and they might not agree, and it's kind of like they've taken over. Whether we like it or not, they should be somewhat ready to go, whether it be learning on the job, doing homework at night, whatever.
And I think, I mean, this is my perspective, Harry, I think a little bit to make it, to create that time where there is a potential overlap, I hate calling it lame duck, is potentially leading the opportunity for things to become a lot more political than I think they generally are. I don't think Rutland's local elections are super political. Obviously, we're elected officials, so by definition, we're political. But I don't think that it's about what political party are they or who do they align with outside of what do you want for town. And I think that in a way to continue to foster that, because I think municipal government should not be party political. And a way to continue to foster that is to not create kind of these opportunities for people that may have been voted out by a contentious vote or a very close vote or something to stay in and continue to set policy or to make decisions that a board that was elected in to do has to then fulfill those obligations.
Question.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that in your time on the board? That the boards have been political so that you wouldn't trust the old boards to stay in office until July 1st? I have not been to board meetings in years past, so I don't know your experience, so that's what
I
I'm
don't know
saying.
that I have that experience, but I think that it creates an opportunity for that to be the case. And I'm trying to, and not that it very well could be intentional by some people, but not necessarily that it would be a like mean vindictive thing, but just by human nature, it could create, I can envision that it could create an opportunity for something of that.
I agree, and if we just don't even provide the opportunity to let that happen, just.
And I'm not looking at this election or next election, but I'm looking at future elections as town grows and seeing kind of what's happening nationally, even within the state, and more local election, like more regional local elections, how we can try to really continue to foster that we're doing this for the betterment of town and not for a larger political motivation.
When does the board normally meet after an election?
Oftentimes, it was the day after election and that was simply to vote officers. More and more, it's been the week after, I think, because we wanna make sure the election can be certified, and
People can get sworn in.
yeah,
It's making sure that there's time to get in and get sworn in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so to make sure that everybody is elected and, or that the results are certified, accepted at the state, and then also everyone's sworn in. So oftentimes, it's whatever that next, it's usually, I think, the meeting after the election. I think it's.
Yeah, I think the way the timing has worked out, I can't remember that the election has ever been on this same week as a select board meeting. I think it's always worked out that our regular meeting is the week following.
Yeah, and I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's been, I think maybe my first year on, it was like right after or a couple days after, and then I think then during COVID it got crazy, and then it's been closer results, or there's been a lot more write-ins. We've had a few write-in elections, and so it's taken a little bit longer to certify the results, and then also ensure that based on everybody's, because most of the board now at this point works a full-time job out of town, where historically it had been people were working in town or much more locally, so they could get sworn in a little bit more easily. And so I think to provide that opportunity, it's been a week or so after, I think.
Yeah, it's usually the following week, and then it's just always made, the first order of business is reorganization before that meeting continues.
And I think generally I think also at that meeting, we try to keep the agenda fairly light, but there are a few things that I think have to happen, including and I think we talked about this in the bylaw review, is accepting ratifying the moderator's appointment of FinCom. And I don't know if there's anything else that statutory had to happen.
All the usual
Warrants
Warrants
and,
and
right, payroll
payroll.
and that, yeah. So, I don't know, I mean, that's the second point of those two. I don't know how the board, like I said, I know how I feel, I hear your
I'm just
considerations.
concerned with the short time that the new board comes in. You know, I threw out July first because in the industry, if you look at the Fed, state, that's when everybody takes the new office. So I just thought it would be nice if we would be compliant with what's going on around us. That's why I threw that out. But my main concern was giving somebody not a day or two to get their act together and sit on a board. So if it's a week that you have time to do this with, and I'm probably fortunate because I could spend 40 hours a week doing this and investigating because I'm retired. But my point is not the average person is. The average person runs for this is a family and a job. And we're asking them to sit on a board and kind of be a lame duck until they can get up to speed.
And I
And
think,
that's why I'm concerned about somebody coming onto the board.
and I think on the flip side is the consideration that giving them till, let's say June 1st or July 1st, it's still on them to do that work. And whether they feel that they are going to do that work in the evenings after dinner and whatever else is done, or if they feel that they need to be learning on the job and doing it, and as they learn pieces here and there. You know, I kind of argue that if you're running for the office, then you're doing that work kind of in the months leading up, or even the years leading up to the election.
Well, hopefully you have the time to do that. You know, that's the other issue is, yes, if you wanna run, I understand, you made an obligation, you made a commitment. But I'm concerned about the future people coming on the board. That's my concern. For me, I'm not worried about, that was never an issue for me.
And I guess,
But if we can give somebody, I don't wanna see it in a bylaw, okay? I don't wanna do that. I think if the board decides to change, then it should be the board's decision. It shouldn't be a bylaw decision. That's where
Excuse me, I don't think you can do that.
What's that?
I don't think you can by policy set the start date of elected officials.
Really?
Really.
I didn't see anything, maybe I'm wrong, what would MGL would prevent the board from doing that?
that's the wrong question. The right question is what an MGL allows you to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there is such a thing, and I mean, I've let this go on quite a while, but Harry, what was your term? What were you elected for?
1 year.
No, okay, good. So you're actually the one exception, so let me talk to Jen. How long were you elected for?
3 years.
So if this came into effect, her term would not be 3 years.
More than.
It would be 3 years and 2 months. And then I have to ask questions based on other things town council has said to me about other laws. Do we need special legislation to make this happen? I don't know the answer. I'd have to talk to town council, and I haven't because I've been waiting to see how the board goes. So it's not clear to me that, it is very clear to me that it could not be done through policy, because policy is too easily changeable, and you would be varying the terms of people's elected positions, and there's no way that's legal. Because you're elected
I see
to
what
a
you're saying.
specific position for a specific duration. So it's gotta be law somewhere. Whether that's whether it's permissible simply in town bylaw is a question I would need to ask town council.
I guess I also struggle a little bit with the fact that the town demographics have changed significantly and are continuing to change. And forward thinking to 5, 10, 15 years down the road, I sit here and hope that we can make it look like you can have a family and you can be working out of full-time or longer out of town and still make this work, because we're representing a good chunk of the people in town who are doing this, who are commuting in and out of town, have families, have a bunch of other activities, whether it's coaching or church or volunteer or civic obligations or whatever. So I'm trying to change it a little bit to say you don't have, I hear a lot that people would like to do something, but they don't have time. And how do you have the time for it? And trying to make it so that we talk about wanting to have new people volunteer for boards and commissions, serve in town, be involved, and then we make it hard that they need to know MGL from front to back, up to down and inside out, and all the bylaws and all of this before they take office. And I think that that's not fair to a majority of the people who I think going forward are going to be serving in these positions.
Would it create an issue if we said the second Monday after the town election? Or the first Monday after the town election? Not specify a specific start date, just say a week, 2 weeks.
It's exactly the same legal problem philosophically.
I mean, now that we're working with the bylaws.
Right, so again, if the board's desire is to examine this, I can talk to town council to see what it would take to put into effect a new start date. Because any change of start date other than immediately upon qualification is a change of term.
I mean, you could always keep it as the date of election and have written or unwritten policy that states the next select board meeting shall take place a week or 2 weeks after the election, unless there's some sort of emergency meeting. But again, I know, to Leah's point again, whoever's coming in, they're making a conscious decision.
Right,
And
they've earned it.
hopefully they're doing some of their homework. Some of the accountability is gonna be on the board to help answer questions and guide the new people that are coming in. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. But I think a lot of the onus is also on that individual that's choosing to come in, and whether they do or don't do their homework, they've been elected by the town, and if they end up coming in and they don't do a good job, then
They're
come next election,
booted, right?
they're probably gonna get
Right.
voted out, but I don't know that changing when the start of the term would have a significant impact on the knowledge of that person,
Yeah,
depending on who they are.
I'm not talking about I'm not looking at the election. I'm just looking at when the board sits, not the election.
But they have to say.
But it's always with
have to
respect
be.
to the election.
Yeah.
It's always with respect to the election. Because the way it is today, the meeting following the election is, they need to have been sworn in by that time so they can sit in those chairs.
And I know in the past, when I've been elected on, there's been communication from the board or the town administrator's office. Have you been able to get sworn in? Are you okay for a meeting on this date? So there is some conscious effort, and generally it's through the administrator's office, just because if the person whom it was chair is still chair at that time, like is still on the board, then sometimes it's the chair that's reaching out, but oftentimes it's been through the administrator or the select board office, just to confirm, like, are you okay? Here's some contact information, like, whatever.
Did you have that on your town administrators when you were elected? Did they reach out to you to help you?
I wouldn't, not to help, but just to confirm that I was able to get sworn in and that I would be okay for a meeting. And then it's not, it's been on me to reach out and say, or go to the MMA website and get the handbook, or I think we've tried to keep the handbook accessible in the office going forward, but there's
I
been
think-
turnover and stuff also, so.
I think that would be a big plus then, if we could give the new person a list of what they have to do or what the information is. Because that was not available.
It really comes down to the board though, cause even the short time I've been on here, I've experienced two completely different boards.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the difference is day and night, literally day and night. When I first got elected, I walked in this, the only one that said hi to me was this person right here. It was like, no one talked, no one, not that we didn't have a job to do, and professionals, but, and then, so the difference, Harry, between this board right now, not that we all agree, but we all communicate. It's unbelievable. It really comes down to the people on the board, I think. I don't know. That was my experience.
Yeah, I mean, if the town administrator can help the new person coming in somehow, giving him direction, I mean, I think that just makes the board better and
Right.
makes his
Oh,
job
absolutely.
easier.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
But I think it should be up to that person.
Right.
If they need,
okay,
they feel they need that.
I hear you.
There will, after all, be the people who believe that they are fully qualified to serve and know
To do the
everything they need to know. And
I'm sure.
Harry, how many times have you and I both said no?
Oh my God.
No battle plan survives first contact, right?
So,
All right, I won't raise any objections to this. If you wanna keep it the way it is, then let's keep it the way it is. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse anymore.
so how does I know how I feel, but Jen, Tom, how do you feel about keeping it the way it is?
Yeah, I'm fine, yep.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not worth the fight.
So unfortunately, it's after 8, and was there anything else that you had high on your list that,
Fingerprint bylaw.
yes. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this. I personally kind of am leaning towards adding a fingerprint piece working that piece into the door-to-door solicitation. Because I feel like the fingerprint bylaw needs major significant reworking if we were to keep it, as far as what's totally feasible and not. But I don't know how the rest of the board feels, or if we wanna address that as a very first topic on the 6th, for everybody to kind of review it.
I mean, through the chair, for me, it comes down to the chief of police.
Yep.
What does he want? Does he want it
He
or?
doesn't have a strong feeling. It's either two bylaws like we have it today. And yes, there's significant work needs to go into to stop the overreach that's in the current fingerprint bylaw. Or to put the fingerprint portion into door to door. Either of those is acceptable to the chief. So,
So for every person that's advertising or doing a fundraiser,
fundraisers
Theory.
are exempt.
so fundraisers are exempt.
Fundraisers and religious.
And religious are exempt, yep.
Okay, so fundraisers,
Yeah,
so
any-
like solar
technically-
panels, someone's going,
Technically, charity,
so Girl Scouts don't have to get their fingerprints, but
right,
a solar panel company
a
does.
solar panel or a
Okay.
magazine, who, you know, something not related to class.
And I can tell you from experience, the no solicitation list does not work.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It just happened on Friday, even though I signed up like 10 times.
I mean, I guess for me, making it part of the solicitation bylaw would make more sense than just the fingerprint bylaw.
It's easier. The breadth of the current fingerprint bylaw, ignoring the things that we can't actually enforce, like ice cream sales, ice cream trucks.
Right, right.
But even the other uses, it's unclear to me how utilitarian it is if only the business owner has to go through a fingerprint check
Yeah.
And they have staff
Right.
working for them.
and
Right.
that they have staff. It's like,
And-
where's the real value to the town?
And in today's in today, we say for future proof also, but in today's economic, we know staff turnover is great in
That's
a
right.
lot of the service industry especially. And so what that might look like in the future. So it sounds like the board is okay, kind of saying put it into,
Okay, great.
Is that the
Yeah,
consensus of the
I'm fine.
board?
Yeah, fine.
I'm good with
Okay.
it.
And the other thing I wanted to say, somebody had mentioned this at one point, the police chief wants fingerprint and not just Cory.
And you'll put that in.
Yes.
And so I think if you work with the public safety
Yeah, exactly.
and figure out what makes the most sense.
Yeah, whatever
And
they
then
want.
I know that the folks who were involved in the door-to-door solicitation had significant concerns about losing the fingerprint bylaw. And I am hopeful that we can find a bridge that,
I'm very sure we can meet the needs of everyone who's interested in this.
thank you, Peter. So is that, I was hoping we'd get through a little bit more, but
Right, the only question, I mean, I heard you brought up town meeting date, but I didn't hear an answer.
I don't think you have an answer yet.
Okay.
I don't know, yeah, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. So again, just for the public, we will do bylaw review on next Monday, November 6th. Thank you, Peter, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session for reason number 2, to adjourn back to open session. Here, I have it here. Can you see it? Is that right, Austin, to return to open, to return?
Return to open session.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll make a motion to enter into executive session for reason number 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel and to return to open session.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, roll call, Harry,
Second, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin, aye.
Whitman, aye. So we have returned to open session from our executive session, thank you for your patience. We want to announce a memorandum of agreement between the town of Rutland and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93. And the notice will be posted in all public buildings as of tomorrow morning, correct?
Is that something we
Is that-
second, or is it
No.
It's just a
announcement?
notice
Okay.
that it's been acknowledged and signed. So is there any other business to come before the board? I just wanna reiterate our meeting dates, November 6th is our bylaw review, 13th is our regular meeting, the 16th, we have our special fall town meeting, and then the 27th would be a regular meeting for right now. Hearing no other business, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second,
Motion by Tom, seconded by Harry, roll call, Harry.
Was that-
second, aye.
Ledger I.
Galvin aye.
Whitman, aye. We're adjourned at 8:36 PM. Thank you all.